right, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Happy Monday to everybody. Hope everybody's doing fine and well. Thank you guys for being here for Unfiltered Reactions, man. Tonight is a little bit more serious, based on the fact of this Tyre Nichols situation, guys. I would love to have some great minds on this conversation tonight, so I'm definitely going to drop the link. Matter of fact, I'll do it early tonight. Because I would love to have some people come up and discuss this situation. Who are we blaming here? Who are we saying that is responsible for this? What about the coulda, shoulda, wouldas? What if he would have? Could he have done it? What if should the officers have enough training to understand not to do what they did to this young man? I want to know what you guys are thinking tonight, and I want to invite you guys into the conversation. If you want to come into the conversation, I have my boy Ronan here with me tonight. Ex-military guy. I also have Dusto in here tonight as well, to have this conversation. I want to start out I'm going to go ahead and put this in here, but before I start, when people say, I never again want to hear people say there's no such thing as racism, or there's no such thing as two things I want to hear. I don't want to hear people saying that racism doesn't exist. I don't want to hear people say police brutality doesn't exist. I don't want to hear people say there's no such thing as this. All right. I don't ever want to hear it again. And this man that got beat to death, I heard somebody today on another platform call this man a victim. He played victim, but the man's dead. How can you be a victim? Yeah, he's a victim now because he's dead. He's dead. He's dead. So we're gonna keep it real tonight, man. And thank you, Mandrell, for being here. Thank you, Ronan, for being here, man. For this conversation, brother. Have you guys seen the video, Mandrell? Have you got a chance to see it?
Yeah.
No, I don't want to see it.
Yeah, I would, man. I didn't either.
I haven't had any interest in watching it. I mean,
I'm gonna tell you, once you see it, you can never unsee it.
I've seen plenty of that. That's
well,
not
I know you have.
Yeah, that's not the part that's going to bother me. But the part that bothers me is that it's the same song and dance.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And no one's doing anything about it. And until we do something about it, it's going to continue to happen.
And what do you think the solution would be? Do you think that the police are more to blame, or do you think that this young man could have done something to prevent this?
Well, the police are absolutely to blame. And the attitude of the populace against the police department nationwide is on the fault of the police department. I mean, the police you have to stop crime to protect someone from harming the innocent. Yeah, but at the same time, the history of policing, especially with minority communities, that kind of behavior never stopped, and sometimes it's allowed to happen with impunity.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And that's ultimately the problem, is that when these things happen, it's on the police department, and always has been on the police department, to do something about it, to hold those officers accountable for their actions. Historically, that has not been the case very often.
No.
It has happened sometimes. It does happen sometimes, but historically, as we stand now, it hasn't happened very often. So now you have a situation where people have been upset, people have been outraged, now people are frightened. And that's where the danger lies. Okay, when people are poor and demoralized and frightened, desperation isn't far behind. And when people are desperate, now the next step is that people are gonna walk around arming themselves to protect themselves against police officers.
Yep.
And the police, I've gotten into this debate with Nathan Daly, black man, you were there for that. I mean, you were watching for that. And I told him, I said, yeah, but then if you shoot the cops, you go to jail. Yeah, but that cop's dead. Now what? Now, if this happens so many times, the public attacking police officers, what is the police department going to do then? So the best course of action is to hold police officers accountable now with very, very strict penalty and strict enforcement today. and hopefully things will get better and hire better police officers. You know what I mean? Police officers' mindset is us against them. For a lot of them, not for all of them. But for a lot of them, it's very much so us against them mentality, and that's where the police go wrong. It's not you against them or us, the citizenry. You're supposed to protect and serve. It says so on your car, you know. But when you got a situation like this, yeah, the kid ran. He ran. He was scared, but you don't beat him for that. You get him to the ground. You restrain him. Once he's restrained and he's no longer resistant, put him in the car, take him downtown, and book him with something. Like with George Floyd, why were you standing on this guy for that long? He is restrained in the prone, behind his back, not resisting. Why didn't you just pick him up and put him in the car, then take him to the station and book him with something? Why did you sit on his neck for nearly 9 minutes? It's completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
You know, so and things like that need to be punished strictly. That's my thing. And once the public sees that, then people will start to feel safe because there's someone protecting the public from the police officers.
Right. And Brother Trey, thank you for being here, man. I would love to have you come up. He's an ex-police officer, so I would love to have him come up because he has a word, man, for sure. I definitely want to get Mr. Bennett in here. Mr. Bennett, what are your thoughts on what's happening in this situation?
Well, dovetailing off of already what's been said, I didn't watch the video. I was actually told that it's probably not a good idea to watch the video just because of the trauma it can cause. But I've seen enough. I remember the Rodney King video from back in the day, and the outcry from that, the reaction, and then ultimately the verdict and the outcome. And I just find it interesting now how there's so much unity around the fact that, okay, these officers have been fired and whatnot, and the swift course of action. Now, I understand there was a sixth officer today that has been put on administrative leave who happens to be white.
And 3 firefighters.
I don't want to make a direct correlation there, but again, is it like, did it have to take the fact that these are black officers to have this sort of swiftness of movement? If these were white officers, would they have been so quick to fire them and to have everybody saying, yeah, now we need to do something? I question that. But I also put in the back chat, this is this year, 2022, was the highest number of police homicides since being recorded back in 2013.
Yeah.
And so, this is definitely becoming has been a problem.
Mr. Bennett.
These are the things we're just seeing, but it's man, I think, action, at least on a national level, having databases where you can track these products, because even with some of these cops, it's like they've had incidences before. And we've also heard about these cases where you have officers will leave a district, get fired from a district, go to another district, and get hired, and there's no connection. There's no a follow-up to see if these guys, have been fired for similar offenses in the past. So I think it's definitely, we definitely need a national, I think, solution at this point, or at least a database where we can start sharing this information and tracking it. But we see where the resistance is coming from, and it doesn't matter. Go back to Boys in the Hood, that movie back in the day. You saw the black officer was just as, how he looked at black people.
I was going to bring that up, Mr. Bennett. This is a case where these are black officers who did this to another black man. So it's not a race thing. This is a police thing.
It's the shield. It's the
police culture. It's a police culture thing.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of times those black officers, they're sometimes they're worse than the white ones. You know what I mean? Because like if I've been pulled over by cops, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. I always do the same thing. They ask me, I hand them my credentials, hands at 10 and 2. I answer their questions. They ask me to step out the car. I'm stepping out the car. I'm answering your questions then. I'm going to do everything you tell me to do. And I've had cops let me go. No ticket, no warning, no nothing, right? But if it's a black cop, I'm getting that ticket. I'm getting that ticket. Period. For me, historically, it's been like that. But I mean, a lot of times they're more strict. From my observation, they can be more strict than quote unquote white cops. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what kind of thing that is, but they seem to drink the Kool-Aid of police culture much more deep than white ones do. I don't know what that's about.
Now let me, before I get you in, Trey, because I'm gonna get you in last. Tommy, what are your thoughts? Then we'll go to Ronan, and then we'll get Trey in here as well. What are your thoughts, Tommy B?
It's definitely a culture thing, and I'm gonna be 100 with you. We see it on these panels, and I said this last night on Fight Club. Every last police officer that I've seen on one of these panels, I've asked, "What happens when you run from the police?" And every last one of them fucking lie, and every last one of them act like they don't know what the fuck protocol is. I've talked to people from the East Coast, from the West Coast, from the South and the Midwest. We all know what's gonna happen if you run. But all of these police officers that supposedly we gonna tell the truth, we on your side ass dudes that be on these panels, every last one of them act like they don't know what the fuck that's about. Aaron O, who ain't even in the streets, knows if you run, you getting your ass beat. And even still, we got these cops, Nathan Daly including all of them, that act like they're just naive to this, if you run, you getting your ass whooped thing. But we all seem to know this for some weird reason. So to a certain point, they all still tend to stay on code, even when they present themselves as the quote unquote good ones, or, you know, the ones that's trying to, you know, point out this and the other. Something as simple as just admitting, yeah, we gonna rough you up if you run. They won't even admit to that. But another misnomer that I kind of get irritated with is like the dangers of the job, which is a dangerous job. It's not even top 10, barely even top 20 dangerous in America. I just looked up 64. 64 was killed last year. We got 50 states. So that's barely one per state. So this misnomer is just such a dangerous job. And, oh, every time I walk out the door, I might not make it back. It's bullshit. I'm not saying that it's not inherently dangerous because you're dealing with criminals, yada, yada, yada. But just this misnomer as if every day I walk out the door, I don't know if I'm going to come back. Like, fuck out of here, dog. 64 in 50 states in a whole year has been knocked off. Like, we gotta move around with that. And I mean, I'm sure you're gonna get deeper with this situation, but it's specific details about this situation that makes this even shadier than ever. But I think the biggest part that you can see that the color comes into this is I ain't heard not a peep from Blue Lives Matter. Not a peep. I ain't seen a white person defending these dudes at all. Not a single bit. And then people say, oh, because it's obvious. Well, I can name plenty of obvious cases where it's a white on a black dude, and they still fall for that. Like you mentioned earlier, Rodney King was a key thing to that, where they flat out let him go, and the white folks damn near riding for the police. But you got 5 black faces up here. Number one, what we noticed was off the top, their faces were splattered on the TV. It took no time. Any other time, we barely could get a name out of them. Number two, the union ain't even backing them like they always do. The union always backs their officers. Even the union is like, this is handled so differently. It reminds me even like the situation in Minnesota where I think it was Ethiopian cop killed the white lady. And the police chief comes out and talks about how beautiful she was, this, that, and the other. But Philando Castile had got killed, a couple of months earlier. Yeah. And it was handled totally different. Yeah. So we're literally starting to see the dynamics of it's not blue lives matter, it's white blue lives matter. Right. So we're starting to see that dynamic of it as well.
And it's interesting you mentioned Philando. He was an NRA card-carrying member of the NRA, and the NRA was silent.
You see nothing about
that they're supposed to be protecting, going on those rights. He presented himself, said everything, and he still got killed, and nothing out of the NRA because of that.
And the reason he was put over was because the cop said while he was driving the opposite way, his nose. That's what he said on the record. His nose. That's what he recognized, and that's what made him a suspect. So, I mean, that's what we're dealing with.
Exactly. And that cop. Hold on, one second. That cop was fired. He was never arrested nor prosecuted and that was flat out murder. Flando Castillo. That's inexcusable murder. And he was just fired. So, I mean, even in the military, we can't get away with that.
We talked about that last night with
Yeah, in the military, we can't do. Yeah, in the military, there's a guy I know, a buddy of mine who's still in. He pulled in security for a court case, and yeah, you do something like that to somebody, you will swing for that.
Well, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Let's just look at what we've seen. I thought it was a cell phone. Understand this: in the military, not only do they have to present the arm, they have to point it to you in a threatening manner and then go for the trigger before you engage. All the police got to do is think it was a gun. You can read cell phone, wallet, and they unload it.
Right.
All right, now let's get Ronan, and then we'll get Trey. Ronan, what are your thoughts?
I agree with what Mandrell and Tommy said. It's like if you have the UCMJ on top, like if they enforce it like they do out in the military, it start to look different. Because you can't get away with shit once they get your ass in the military. It's a wrap. Yeah. You're either going to Leavenworth or some other shit, and you get stripped down there to bare bones.
They're going to take your time, your money,
pay,
your freedom. The military does not play that.
You'll be on that bread and water diet, straight up.
And vitamins.
But yeah. But what I said earlier, it's like on security boss, it's like they don't have people in the same jurisdiction. Like I say, like they're familiar with the neighborhood to kind of ease tensions or something like that. The escalation of force is trash. The conflict resolution is trash. Like they automatically assume this person is this, that, and the third, without even any solid information or anything like that. They'll shoot questions and barely ask. They'll shoot first and barely ask questions later. And in most cases, and I'm saying like not all, if you have some decent cops in there, there is this culture to where they pretend, well, it's just random stuff that happens. Now, I didn't pull my pistol out in so many years, but you'll have so many gangs like the Renegades or whatever else out there sitting there doing their thing. That's what I learned down in California, where they have certain units that just do what they do. So it's the shitbirds out there who make it worse for everybody else. The bigger about tensions, even a boy in California where he was in the military too, but then he, went Rambo straight up out there because of the shit that was going on down there, and they hunt him down. You haven't seen the body since. So there has to be some things internally that has to be fixed, because that young dude, of course, he's going to run. Some guys are terrified.
That's the thing. I think that guy was just scared, because that's the point that people are at now. You know what I'm saying? And like with the military, like we were talking about UCMJ, right? Mm-hmm. Like Mr. Bennett, you'd be amazed at how fast they catch you, gather evidence, and you're in court during jury selection. Yeah. You'd be amazed how swiftly the military does not play that. You know what I'm saying?
There's no union, right?
Right. And the thing is, but out here, you know what I'm saying? Out here, you got the union, but the thing is, if you got videotape of this, my thing is, okay, that and George Floyd, why did the union even bother stepping in to say anything? No, dude, you're guilty. And it's things like that. It's the optics of it all that gives people that still gives people fear and pause. You know what I'm saying? And it causes distrust between the populace and the police officers. It's not just the police officers. It's not just police culture. It's the whole thing, because they're not held accountable. No one's going to jail. No one's being punished for committing a crime. And these are the people who are tasked with enforcing the law. But no one's enforcing the law when they break it. That's what the public sees. And when I talk to Nathan Daly, that's what I try to get him to understand, is what the populace sees is that police officers who break the law that they're tasked with enforcing are not held accountable. Yeah. That has to end if you want first if you want to improve relations between police officers and the populace.
Now I got Trey here. Trey, I don't want to presume, what it is that you feel. I heard you earlier, but give us a little bit of your background, your military, up to you becoming a police officer, and then go into your thoughts on what you heard so far.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name's Trey. I was in the United States Air Force for 8 years. I was a security forces member. I was a military working dog handler. I specialized in explosives there. And after I got out in 2012 and 2014, I joined the police department in Washington, D.C., where I served in the 6th District, which is also the district that I happen to grow up in. And my mother and grandmother both live in. So I was literally patrolling the area that I grew up in. I try to be, I want to say things on these panels, but it will always come off as though I'm defending them. And I want to be very clear. I'm not defending these 5 officers because what I saw was disgusting. And what I saw was not something that's not the oath that I took. That's not what I was about. Okay. But I also have a different understanding of what it's like to be a African American police officer. I see it a little bit differently. Right. And I think it was Mandrell, you were speaking about officers earlier with black officers feeling the need to maybe do a little bit more, be a little extra on the scene.
That's the impression that I get personally, and I've seen listening to other people, their interactions with black officers and things. It seems to be the common trend. And again, I understand being a black police officer, that's a different experience than being a white police officer in the station. Like, you guys have things to deal with. I'm not omitting that. You guys have things to deal with being a black officer from your from your co-workers and fellow officers. I'm aware of that as well. So I mean, I'm like, yeah,
okay,
that's messed up.
So
that's why I mean,
my point in bringing that up is that while you guys have spoken about sort of the way that racism works within the police department, it works with black officers too. And there are times where black officers are in departments where we deal with it too. I got suspended 17 days for stepping to a white officer who I thought was showing his behind on one of the scenes. And I stepped to him and let him know that's not how we operate in these neighborhoods. We don't treat people with disrespect. And we wound up getting into it. We wound up getting into a fight. I got suspended for 17 days. He got suspended for 39 because they actually agreed with me. But because I fought him, I still got suspended. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that the public will never see. And I know a lot of it is that the public wants good cops to hold bad cops accountable. And I agree 100%. But I want you to understand that in the process of doing that, you're also putting your livelihood on the line. And I can tell you that because I've experienced it.
So can I ask you a quick question?
Sure, go ahead.
How can people push the point to me that there are more good cops than bad cops when this, in what you just said, I've heard on the regular. So if that's the culture in policing, then how could the minority overrule the majority like that?
They can't. I'm not sitting here trying to tell you that there are more good cops than there are bad. I don't know what's in the heart of every police officer. I'm gonna tell you a true story. I rode around with a guy for almost 4 months. One day I showed up to work. I asked where my partner is. They said they fired him. I said, "What do you mean they fired him?" I said, "Well, he was a part of MS-13, so they fired him." I had no clue. I cannot tell you what's in the heart of officers. And this is the issue when you're dealing with recruiting. Most of these officers are being recruited from where? South Carolina, Pennsylvania, Alabama. And they're coming into these neighborhoods that are a little bit more urban. We don't know what's in their heart. I can't tell you what's in their heart. And obviously the recruiting process is not being stringent enough to weed out the bad ones. It happens often. So I'm not one to sit here and tell you there's more good cops than there are bad cops, because I don't know. I can't tell you that. I can only speak for myself and how I dealt with people when I was on the street. And my goal was always the same. My goal is to get you from here to the judge. I am not judge, jury, and execution. It's not my job. My job is to listen. I found enough probable cause to make an arrest. I make the arrest. My job is to get you from here to the judge. They deal with the charges. That's not on me.
Yeah, I could respect that, because that's normally the sentiment that we hear is, well, there's more good than bad, or there's a lot more than good than bad. And I want to put this out here too, because the way I come off, people gonna think that, I'm just like, F the police, this and that. Like, my cousin got killed by the police 3 months ago. After seeing the video, you ain't hearing me say nothing about it, because I seen what he did, and they had no choice. They told him to put the gun down. He didn't. He basically turned around like he was gonna point it to him. Hey, it ain't nothing else they could do. I'm saying all this and that, but I'm not about to be out here talking about F them cops, yada, 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 when I seen what he did. So I'm not one of these people that's just, no matter what the police do, F them, yada, yada, yada. But from experience that I've had with them throughout my life, whether it's in the hood or even in the suburbs and shit, like you said, I don't know if it's a recruiting, a training, or whatever, but like something needs to change. And one thing I've always told people is, black people have been like, this is why I tell a lot of white people. Look at black comedians going back to the 60s. This is an all running joke with us that the police will beat your ass, yada, yada, yada. I mean, it maybe go before the 60s, but 60s, 70s, 80s, this is like the go to joke about how the police will whoop your ass. In that time, I have never seen national police reform, not once. And the only way that you can change a system is through reform. So when everybody tries to explain to me how it's different, yada, 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 point me to the year where they had national reform and we'll talk. But nobody can because it's never happened.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think you will ever see the type of reform that most people want when it comes to police officers. I just don't ever think you'll see it. I don't ever think you'll see a nationwide, disbanding of qualified immunity. I don't think you'll ever see that either, because I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. And I saw this during the Black Lives Matter time. I was still on duty during the George Floyd, and I was downtown DC when the Black Lives Matter protests were happening, and I was down there. Some of us was getting our ass kicked, to be quite honest with you. I'm just going to tell you the honest truth. We was getting beat up down there. Okay. Um, a lot of cops will quit. And that's what happened. Right after the BLM, a lot of officers was like, for what? For $70,000 a year? No, I'm not doing this. I'm out. And you saw the numbers dwindle. I know on the earlier show, they were talking about firearms training. And I'm telling you, I've been in firearms training where they just pass people because they can't afford to fire them.
Yeah.
They can't fire them because if you were to follow the letter of the law, that means they're done. You take their gun and the badge away from them, you can't work anymore. Well, that's a problem. And I had been on duty on a midnight shift where there was only 6 of us for that entire shift. It's a rough job when you don't have the amount of officers that you're supposed to have. So I think a lot of times what you're seeing is you're seeing lax PT standards, you're seeing lax training, you're seeing lax educational. Like when you go through the academy, you have to take a certain number of tests. They're lowering the passing rate, what
Yes.
you need to actually pass it. You're seeing a lot of this. When I was in the academy, it was pretty much like the PT test in the military. By the time I left the academy, you didn't even have to pass.
It's about
You
retention.
you know, yeah, you just had to show improvement because they were losing so many officers that they couldn't keep them, and they weren't being able to recruit and bring them on. So they were just like, well, whatever we can do to keep them. And the problem with this is it only hurts one group of people, and it's not the police officers. It hurts the civilians because you're putting untrained people on the streets. I said this well, I didn't say it, but I wrote in the chat, black man, that in DC, 5 training days, 2 firearm days, 3 practical training days, 5 days a year. Well, that's not because that they choose it that way. That's how the schedule runs based on the amount of officers they have for that department. They can't have you in training because nobody's working the streets. So the most you can get is 5 days. Well, that's a problem because when you get guys who are on Scorpion units for 2 to 5 years and don't know what they're doing, this is what happens. So the training needs to be continuous. And I said this to the chief of police. I'm on record saying this to Chief Peter Newsham before he left on the DC Police Department. I said to him that we need more training. And his response was, we don't have the manpower to do it. And I said to him, but that means that the standard is very low and we need to do something about it. And his response to me was, take the sergeant's exam and you can fix it yourself. That was the answer from the chief of police. When I say that, and I said this earlier, black man, the culture is toxic, which was one of the reasons why I left. It is toxic. And you have officers who are coming from these, these states where they don't have much interaction with black folk, thinking they could just come up here and do whatever the hell they want to do. And with qualified immunity, they're not going to get in trouble, and the union's going to back them. I mean, it's the stories I could tell. I won't go into it, but the things I could tell y'all. One of the reasons why I had to step away. I was like, I can't do this anymore. It's enough seeing a bunch of teenage bodies teenage boys who with holes in them every night. That enough. That'll take its toll on you in itself. But now you dealing with the white officers who don't think that they have to respect black citizens. We're fighting two different beasts here, and I'm not trying to make it seem like, oh, woe is me. I'm just giving you guys some insight.
Yeah.
And what irritates me the most is that these 5 officers have tarnished everything that these black officers, good black officers, have been trying to do in these communities. They tarnished it forever.
So let me ask you this: are there officers, because I know a lot of people say, what are the solutions for us as civilians to do? Like we talked on the last show, what is it that we can do? But do you think there's officers out there that believes no matter what we do, they're still going to behave in the same manner, no matter what we do, no matter
Yes.
if we comply or not, we still get our asses kicked?
Yes, you have some officers that they want to be head crackers. That's what they want to be. That's what they've seen their uncles who was on the force that did it. That's what they've seen their daddies who was on the force that did it. And you have to remember that if they grow up with their daddy who was on the police department back in the 90s, well, what do you think he's telling them? Well, back in the 90s, we would have never put up with this. This is what Tommy's referring to, that when you run away, when they catch you, this is how it goes down. Right? But the truth of the matter is that now with the body cameras, it doesn't go down like that, like as often. I can't speak for jurisdictions that don't have body cameras, but I know body cameras now, it doesn't go down like that as often. But what you have is a bunch of old heads, a lot of them still on the department, that will tell you, nah, man, when you catch them, you gotta make them pay. I know, because my training officer told me that. And I'm looking at him going, nah, I'm good. Like, I caught him. We're good. We can move on. You know what I mean? Now, let me be very clear. If you fight me, we're going to fight. I'm not just going to let you beat me up. But I truly believed in it. I guess it's because I learned it in the Air Force. I learned the use of force model in the military first, which helped me understand how to meet force with force. So I had a different understanding when I got to the department, where you're taking a lot of people who maybe weren't in the military, who don't understand use of force, and they always think I got to be one step above you. So if you just acting passively resistant, I can punch you and beat on you. That's not how it works. So listen, there's so much to this, but what I'm hoping is, and I hate that the black officers are going to get used for this, but I don't care. If they got to go down as the ones being used for this, then so be it. But what needs to happen is we now need to see that officers, no matter what color their skin, need to be held accountable. And you guys spoke to the Blue Lives Matter. They ain't gonna say nothing, because this is a loss. This is an L for unions. This is an L for Blue Lives. This is an L for everybody. NRA, everybody that wants to back the police. This is an L. They're gonna be silent as church mouse, because they know you can't come out of this one right. There's nothing good about this entire situation at all.
Right,
Okay.
Mr. Bennett, do you have anything you wanted to add? Then I'll get world class in here.
Well,
What's up, world class?
I had a question for the Peace World Class. Had a question for Brother Trey. Again, thank you for being on tonight. And thank you for sharing your perspective. The military to police pipeline, I've had interest in, because it seems that obviously, with all these guys serving on in the military, you guys have a different mindset. Sometimes a war mindset when you come into it. So, do you think that is a good thing for ex-military to become police officers? Is that the right, if you were to do a fair assessment, is that the right pool from which to draw these officers coming in with that mindset? Because you also talked about earlier about some of these guys coming from Alabama and these places that don't have a lot of black people. Again, a lot of these guys are in that military as well. So again, in fact, there was something that came out not too long ago about some of the enlisted officers who were at January 6th. So a lot of these guys are they're infiltrated in a lot of our institutions of law enforcement or military. So I just wanted to get your view on that. Is the military the best source from which to get officers? And I get the idea that the supply is limited, so you try to get them from where you can. But I just want to get your feedback on that. And the second thing I put in the chat, I was looking for some data and statistics on whether or not the use of body cams. I know you had mentioned earlier that body cams have somewhat lessened, but from some of the data that I'm seeing, and obviously it was shown with these officers because they had body cameras, that body cameras do not seem to be affecting how a lot of these officers are going about doing their data, at least not in the aggregate.
turn
There
them
might be
off.
some cases,
Yeah.
but it seems like it's not working very well, as far as limiting their behavior. So want to get your perspective on that as well, but more so the military, since you have experience in both areas, want to get your perspective on that.
Yeah, let me start with the body cam, and then I'll go into the military. I'm going to be very clear. The body cams are not for civilians. And I don't know why people think that that's what it was. The body cams were not put on cops to protect the civilians. They were put on cops to protect the cops. That's why they spent millions of dollars for it. They spent millions of dollars because people were coming in and saying, hey, this guy beat me up. And then they would later find out that wasn't necessarily true. Doesn't mean he didn't get beat up by a cop. It just means that he can't remember his story correctly, right? So they decided that they wanted to do body cams, and they tried to make it seem like they pulled a switcheroo. They made it seem like these body cams are for the civilians. They're not, I promise you, because I've been in situations where people have said, oh, this officer did this to me. I've had a woman say that I touched her. I wasn't even on the call. They pulled my body cam and was like, he wasn't even there. It's not for her. It's not for the civilians. It's for us. It's for the officers, to protect the officers. That's why they invested the millions of dollars. So the stats that you probably pulled up, they're probably correct. They're probably very good. They're probably very accurate, because the body cams aren't for the civilians. The military to officer pipeline, I'm iffy on. I'm half and half. There is a level of prior experience that goes along with being in the military that you can bring with you. It served me well, but the problem is, and I said this earlier to Tommy when I was talking about the officers, you just don't know what's in these guys' hearts. You just don't know, and there isn't enough testing psychologically, emotionally, to be able to really get deep down and to find out what type of person this officer will be. You just don't know until you get them out there on the street, and then you find out. What I have suggested, and what I suggested to Chief Newsham, was when these guys show you within that probationary period, when they're training officer, and I was a training officer, when I write in their training records, this officer lacks social skills, you need to fire them. Because that means that this officer does not understand de-escalation tactics. They don't understand how to go into a home with a domestic violence case and bring everybody down. Let's get to the bottom of this. If I'm writing it in, and I'm gonna give people a pro tip that want to investigate police officers. Start checking training records and read what the training officers are writing about these officers, because they're supposed to be very honest about, hey, he can't do this, he doesn't understand this, he can't, he doesn't remember protocol, he doesn't remember procedure. I wrote this stuff down, and at the end of their training session, at the end of their training period, the officer that trains them is supposed to give basically a yay or nay, like, should this person be a police officer or not? I'm telling you the honest truth. I was 50-50 on everybody I trained. I was 50-50. Some yes, some no. But what happens is a lot of the training officers, the powers to be, will turn it back on you and say, well, why couldn't you get them trained up? So now what happens? The training officers, they passing everybody now, because they don't want them to look back on them and say, well, you're going to put this all on me? When I'm telling you, listen, they just don't have it. They don't know how to converse with people. They're coming in, even though they were never in the military, they're coming in shouting demands. That's not how you cannot walk. I cannot walk into Ronan's house. He's a grown man. I cannot walk into his house and start telling him what to do. That's not how it works. Ronan, as a man, he's going to fight back. He is. But if you're not trained to think properly, you don't understand that concept, because you don't have the social skills. Instead, what I would try to do with Ronan is try to talk to him and say, hey, man, come talk to me. Tell me what's going on. Make him feel comfortable. But you have a lot of officers. Hey, man, don't go over there. Hey, man, where you going? Don't go upstairs. It's his house. He can go wherever he wants, right? The pipeline, it can work. It can be effective. But unfortunately, there just isn't a system that's able to get rid of the bad apples. I have yet to see a system with police officers where they're able to get rid of the bad apples, right? It always takes some sort of event, and then now we can get rid of them. But I think, personally, the training is where it's at. If that training officer is saying this guy's a no-go or this woman is a no-go, you got to trust it. But the problem is also, one last thing, they've also invested money in that person. They've invested money into that officer now. They don't want to lose the however much money they spent on getting that officer trained up, getting them a new weapon, getting them a body cam, getting them the uniforms. You know what I mean? They don't want to waste the money now, because now if you fire them, you just wasted money. But
Right.
I think ultimately you have to fire them, because it's going to cost you more money in the end if you don't do it and they go out and do something stupid.
The world class just came in. Thank you for being here, Noble. World class, if you got anything you want to ask Trey, or you got anything you want to add to the conversation, and then Ronan, I see your hand up, so we'll go to you next.
Both. Good evening, gentlemen. Peace to the panel. Peace to the chat. Appreciate y'all having me up. Been in these conversations a few. I did not watch the video. I am not going to watch it. Definitely
Yeah,
not
man.
on person.
You'll never unsee it, brother. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I've seen enough terror in my life. I have a question, but I'm gonna make a statement first, because we've been in this conversation. Mandro, what's up? Mandro has mentioned a person that's been in this space that we've had these conversations with, and I was on Suzette Speaks channel the other day talking about this. And the one thing I want to point out, because we've said that it's the training, they're unfunded, there's nobody funding the training, and I think that's just bullshit. And y'all know me, once I back that up, once I say something, I back it up with something devastating. Here's the devastation. If it was training, then these armed security guards that's in North America, these bounty hunters would have the same kill percentage as these city and county cops. The state trooper would have the same kill percentage. They don't. The marshal would have the same kill percentage. They don't. The sheriff would have the same kill percentage. They don't. The city and county cops seem to be the only ones that have this bloodlust to shoot people and kill people and stomp them to death. So it's the culture. It's the culture, and it's just the culture. All of those things are BS, because the foundation of them, those city and county cops, is slave catchers. Now, the North had a version and the South had a version, and then they rebranded it. The nature of them doesn't make any sense, because let me remind you, you have somebody called a sheriff, and that sheriff can deputize. So why do the city and county police officers exist? They only exist for one purpose, and that's to do what they do on a day-to-day basis: protect property. But people used to be property. So I really can't. I mean, that's simple stuff. That doesn't take research to know that all that is a bunch of horseshit. Because those bounty hunters are not killing people like that. These armed security guards aren't killing people like that. The feds aren't killing people like that. You can go over. The National Guard is not killing people like that. It's just one entity. City and county cops around the country who kill almost just as much as all the terrorist organizations on the planet. I think it's like 1-20 ratio for England or Europe itself. For every 20 we kill, they maybe kill one. So it's an agenda. And it's not even what we would call so-called racism, because they kill more white people than they do us, right? So my question then would be, what causes, or what reason would you, Trey, what was your reason for becoming a police officer?
My reason?
Yeah. And I asked what reason, I'm asking what was your reason, because I'm supposing it's just the way it looks. It's just a job.
Well,
Just
I hate to be that guy, but ultimately it is a job. I mean, you are hired, you are trained, and you are paid to utilize the skills that they, and the training that they taught you. Um, did I have a particular reason? No, I'm not one of those type of people that do like the glorify thing. Like, I'm gonna go, save the world, and that's not me. For me, it was sort of just the next natural thing. I was, law enforcement in the military, and I decided to get out of the military, and so going back home, it was just a natural thing. Okay, I'll go be a cop at home. It wasn't until I actually got sworn in and got assigned to where I got assigned that maybe it got a little bit more personal because of where I worked. You know what I mean? Like, because I worked in the same neighborhood that I grew up in, where my mother lived, where my grandmother lived, it became a little bit more personal to me because, I knew people. I could drive them down the street there. I knew people because I grew up there. But I didn't have this like, reason. Like you would get a lot of these cops that come in and will say, "Oh, I always wanted to be a cop since I was a kid because I want to help people."
Mm-hmm.
And then you pull up their record and you're like, you're not really helping people. You know what I
Facts.
mean? So it's just I didn't have that. I wasn't that guy that said no. It was just it was the natural thing for me to go from being a cop in the military to being a cop in the local department.
So this last question. So you would say that having somehow being assigned to where you grew up, you think that was a big influence on how you went about your business? Because
Absolutely.
these are neighborhoods that you've been around, you grew up in. I think, and
Absolutely.
I guess the end of that question would be, do you think that would, because that has come up a lot, if people were policing in the areas that they grew up, do you think that would change the level of violence just the violent encounter, not even ascribing fault to one or the other?
Yes and no. I think that statistically you will see a decrease
Mm-hmm.
if officers were policing the neighborhoods that they grew up in, right? You're going to see a decrease. However, I don't know if anybody's from the DMV area, but I happen to work in some neighborhoods that they're just violent.
Yeah.
And, as much as we try to go in and do what we can, unfortunately, it is what it is, right? But I think me personally, I don't think any officer should be able to work an area or a city that they don't live in.
Mm.
And I vehemently believe that if your car ain't parked on one of the public streets of that city, you should not be able to be a cop there. Because we have,
Mm.
like where I worked in DC, the guys worked in DC, but they lived in Virginia. And I don't think I need to go any deeper into Virginia. They lived in Virginia, but they worked in DC. And so they're
Here,
bringing that Virginia mentality into DC.
here in
And
Baltimore, a lot of them live in Pennsylvania. Like even the headquarters and a lot of precincts is right off of 83, which goes up to Pennsylvania.
so
Which is
you
interesting.
understand, yeah, you understand
Yeah,
what
I
I'm saying, yeah.
truly understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
agree with that.
and particularly black officers. Black officers absolutely need to
Mm-hmm.
be in the neighborhoods that they grew up in. Absolutely. Because I'm telling you, I cannot tell you how many domestic violence situations I've walked into and I knew the guy. I either went to high school with him, I played ball with him, I played AU ball. It doesn't matter. I knew
Mm-hmm.
him. And I could talk to him and they would say, "Hey, what's up, Trey?" And I go, "You tell me." You know what I mean? We're here in your house. What's going on? I can have a different conversation with him than the other officers he doesn't know can have. And it also calms them down a little bit, right? Because they're full of adrenaline. Also calms down because he has a face that he recognizes.
Right. Which is kind of similar to how the sheriff used to be back in the day. They knew everybody's name.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
patrolled.
That's
So
how I
that was
grew up.
it. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
my neighborhood, everybody knew when the chief came or any officers came, we knew them all by name, and they knew us by name. Hey, boy, get in this car and take you to your mama. They
Right.
knew you. It wasn't any physical or any forceful, nothing, none of that. It was basically, I'm gonna take you home to your mama. What you doing out here this time of night, or what it was just a different time, bro. I don't know what happened, man. What the shift? But Ronan had a question. Ronan, go ahead, brother.
You
Muted.
muted.
Sorry about that. But the question was earlier about thoughts about the military to police pipeline. And I agree, I'm a little bit iffy on that because number one, if they don't have the psychological profiles made available online or whatnot, that way if individuals known for certain things, you can red flag them and get them out of there. Number two, it's like they don't have anything that says intense ethnicity interaction training. Because there's a lot of individuals who bring that bullshit to the military and into the streets because now they're trained to be a weapon. Now they're one of these shitbirds to sit there and take people out, both black, white, and indifferent. So, and again, mainly the psychological thing, even the thing like it's more mental than anything because people say they're more stressed. And World Class, you mentioned it before, it's more dangerous being an Uber driver than a cop personally. Because I know for myself, my protection, I have at least 7 knives on a basic. I don't leave my car without 7 knives, and I have a 45 sitting on my driver's side part. Because I've had individuals try it, and I told them, look, either you can let me take you to your destination, or we can pull over and have this conversation, and I'm not calling no cops. So I know where to put you.
Black man, can I say one thing real quick? I think I think one of the other things that we should be doing is the neighborhood should pick the police officers. And this has always been a thought of mine, is that we need to stop allowing officers to recruit and choose who's an officer. What would happen is that these newer officers would have no choice but to get into the neighborhood. You would have to get to know the people in the neighborhood, or else they won't pick you to be an officer. So now they get to question you. They get to talk to you and have conversations with you. And what I found interesting when I was training a lot of these officers, when we would go and, maybe we would have a little beat, we would have to walk for 15, 20 minutes, and we would walk around the neighborhood. The moment I said to the citizen, this officer's in training, you can see the light bulb click in their head. I'm about to start asking him a bunch of questions, right? Because they want to know who's going to be policing in my neighborhood. And I personally think that the neighborhood, the citizens in the neighborhood, if you can get them to participate, I know there's some neighborhoods that won't participate, but if you can get them to participate, let them have a hand in who's going to be in policing their neighborhoods. Let them choose. And some of these people in the neighborhood will tell you straight up, this officer is this officer is nice, this officer is rude, this officer is arrogant, this officer is disrespectful. I'm going to vote no. I think that would change a lot with the community police officer relations, because the police officers have to go in these communities. You got to talk to these people now. You have to talk to these citizens now. You have to get to know them, or else you won't have a job here. Just an idea, just throwing it out.
That's kind of how the sheriff exists. You're supposed to vote for that guy. That's what I'm just like, when you can tell you look at it, it's all. It's weird, bro. It's like, why do y'all exist? I just don't understand why city and county police officers exist when you can have sheriffs and they can deputize, because you literally vote for the sheriff in your county. Usually these municipalities group a lot of counties up in one. But it's like when we have these ideas, how the constitution in each state is set up, where the sheriff is actually, if you go look at your state constitution, the sheriff is actually over your mayor of that county. And a lot of these things would be solved if we didn't have this interface with these city and county cops. It don't really make any sense, because I know in my city, if I go in my neighborhood, I could round up about 20 men and the drug dealers would be gone, lifeless, out of that 72 hours max. We get them out of there in a short period of time. So, got to get to the part. But Suzette had asked a question about that. Like, what's the solution? The solution is private communities, gated, and that's something that you can do financially. You can set up trusts or whatever, and you know who's coming in, you know who's going out, and you can have people volunteer and police your own and grow those private communities, because they're not going to let up, and things are not going to get. They are being these city and county municipalities are not going to let up. They got too much funding. Everybody got like black ops technology and level technology in their precincts now, and it's like
I was literally about to. That was going to be a point I was going to raise, because there was a period of time, and I think it manifest itself during Ferguson, where you had a lot of these vehicles, like a lot of these former military vehicles and equipment was being given to these local police departments. So it was almost like so you have the issue of these ex-military people coming in with a mindset, and then you're going to give them weapons and vehicles or whatnot that makes them think like they're still in the military in some of these areas rather than protect and serve. So you really saw that flesh out during Ferguson. And I thought, and I don't know if that's still happening, because you had a lot of precincts buying this I don't know why the military decided to, start making that equipment available to these municipalities, but I know that was a major issue for a while, and I don't know if that's still happening. But we did see an escalation in that, and you just saw, it's like, am I in a community? Am I in a war zone? Because they had everything.
The thing is, it's because
I can speak.
I was about to say it's because other agencies want money, so they sold it to they sell those vehicles to the police department, like defense contractors who manufacture these vehicles. They sell them to the military, of course. A lot of those vehicles the military doesn't use. Just keeping it real. Mm-hmm. People, it makes it like we got 3,200 Abrams tanks sitting in the hangar, just sitting there, and they've been there for years. Mm-hmm. By the time I saw them, they had been sitting there for years, and of Go to my information. They still sitting there. No one's touched them. So he had these companies looking to manufacture, looking to get contracts and no big contracts and make these vehicles. And they're like, okay, cops will make these vehicles for you. They send it to the cops. They don't know any better. It's just a truck. It ain't bulletproof. You know what I'm saying? They're not bulletproof or anything like that. They're just trucks. And so they'll tell the other law enforcement agencies and say, hey, man, we like this truck. It's fantastic, blah, blah, blah. The word spreads, more of them buy them. It's all about money. That's all. Defense contractors make a lot of nonsense all the time. And so now, cops, you can make a case sound good as to why you think you need that when you really don't. You know what I'm saying? It's easy to argue that case as to why you need funding for these vehicles. That ain't hard. So they're not making, I don't hear them making cases for better body armor. There's level 4 body armor that cops don't wear. I see cops all the time. Most of them don't have vests on. So, I'm just like, there's other things they could have.
Right. Or for the services that we're talking about, right?
Right.
It's just the services, the doctors, the counselors.
Right. There's no money being invested in any of that. No, there's no money being invested in any of that. And another, to my man's point here, another thing that needs to go is civil forfeiture, man. Y'all stealing. Stop it. You're stealing. Stop it. No more civil forfeiture. I think that needs to go too, along with qualified immunity. Both of those got to go.
Hey, information man, come on up, information man. We're talking to our brother Trey here tonight. He's a ex-cop, and he's giving us some insight on what goes on in the background, and so we're having a great conversation. So the StreamYard link is at the top. It's pinned to the top. So I would love to have your perspective, information man, sir, if you want to come on up. But yeah, man, a lot of people. Thank you, Trey, man, so much for being open and honest, man, about everything, brother. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, appreciate it.
For having this conversation with us, man, because like you heard my brother Tommy here say that most cops, when he asked them that question, they can't answer those questions, and so you were able to come in and bring some peace to Tommy's mind on some of those questions he had, and it's also very hard to have a to get some understanding. My brother World Class down here at the bottom, you're gonna have to bring it with World Class, and he didn't have any pushback for you either. So I mean, you've really answered the questions, man. I appreciate you. But to go into that question that Mandrell just answered, do you think that's one of the things that broke the relationship? One of the things, I know it's a lot, but one of the things that broke the relationship between the community and the police, when the police are looking more like military now than they do like protect and serve, or like is that one of the things that people are more fearful of?
The damage had already been done, though, to Trey. My thing was this: the damage had already been done, starting forever ago. So them bringing in those jet boots and the military vehicles, no one was surprised by that. No one was more afraid of it. They were already afraid. The concern and worry and fear was already there. No one was more afraid. It was like, it's par for the course. Figures. Like that was more the attitude.
Right, but what it does is it's compounding. It's just making it worse, right? There's no reason for me to have night vision goggles in my trunk. What the hell do I need night vision goggles for? And I remember when they gave them to me, and they said, "You former military, right?" I said, "Yeah." They said, "You know what to do with these." I said, "When am I ever going to?" And I never once in 6 years used them.
Why did give you? What was their reason for giving you NVGs, man?
Because we had a few cases where people were entering homes like through the attic, like through the roofs and stuff like that, and they wanted to do observation posts. And so when they were doing these observation posts, they wanted to give officers night vision goggles. And so what they do is they don't sort of share equipment. They just give everybody one, and then they just pick you. All right, today, Trey, you're a condor spot. The condor would be the code word for, all right, you got the observation post. And then I would have to use my night vision goggles, but I never used them. I never once used them. I had a gas mask. I never used the gas mask. You know what I mean? Like I agree with you, Mandrell. The damage was already done. But when you see officers walking around in BDU type pants and combat boots, and it just enforces it. It just enforces it. And when I first got to the department in DC, we had slacks. We had the I can't think of the material. It starts with a P, but we had the slacks.
Polyester.
Polyester, thank you. We had the polyester slacks. We had the button-up shirt. You wore your vest underneath. You look like like you, not say corporate, but you had a collared shirt on with buttons. Yeah, you were still a cop. Well, they switched from that to polo shirts, BDU pants, combat boots, and we wear a vest on top because for whatever reason, they wanted to intimidate the public. Oh, and by the way, the collared shirt on the first uniform was like a light powder blue. We went to all dark blue. So it's intentional. They did this on purpose, right? And what's crazy to me, and I'm not trying to absolve the cops, but the cops didn't do this. It was the city council who voted for it.
We need like officers to look more tactical.
Exactly. They wanted the officers to look more tactical, and the city council okayed this.
But what's crazy about that is the criminals ain't the ones that's intimidated by it. It's the fucking general public.
That's
right.
I don't give a fuck what you wear.
Exactly.
Every time, Tommy,
you know who's intimidated? You know who's intimidated? The 70-year-old woman that I pulled over because she wasn't paying attention and she ran a stop sign in front of me. She's scared to death when I walk up there on her. Not the guy who's standing out on the corner. He don't care nothing about me. Some of this stuff, and as you guys can't tell right now, I didn't necessarily always get along with my management because I challenged them. Because a lot of the stuff that we were doing, it didn't make sense. I was the lead on a, I'll just say tactical unit. It was a narc unit. Our job was to go in and go make drug arrests. But where I left the department was, we kept getting sent to the same neighborhood every day. And I was saying to them, there's white boys uptown that got coke too. We can go up there too and go get them. No. We want you to stay right here. The mayor wants your team right here. Well, first of all, how does the mayor even know about this? Like, there's so much. But to answer that point about the uniforms, absolutely. It is to send a message to the impoverished neighborhoods. You're in a war zone, and the police officers are dressed like it. They act like it. They drive the vehicles that look like it. The SWAT vehicles, when they would go out on their patrols, they would drive those big, tank. It's not a tank, but it's like
APCs.
It's like an up armored vehicle. Yeah, they would drive them through the hood, and I would ask them all the time, do y'all go uptown Northwest and drive them?
They don't.
These $1 million homes?
They don't.
No, y'all don't. You don't. So you're
only thing they miss is the gun turn on the top.
Yeah, all that. Plus, it gets ignorant when you get night vision goggles and ghillie suits. Like, y'all going too fucking far. Like, really slow down.
Yeah, man, y'all doing too much. But it's like you said, it ain't necessarily the cops. It's the city.
It's the city.
You know what I'm saying? It's really the city doing that. But it affects the cops because
I keep saying,
like, and Ronan, you can tell people who ain't never been through anything when it comes to the army, like who's never seen combat. They're impressed by that. Like, oh, this is cool. Whereas you and I would get that shit and be like, yeah, okay. You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like,
really, this is nothing. Like, what are you talking
about? But you got some guys who put that uniform on, the tactical uniform, and it does make them feel empowered somehow.
Yeah.
I mean,
for the ex-soldier, does it put you back in?
No. For me, it does not. It's just like, because I understand that even with all this stuff on, I could walk out of here and not come home. This doesn't matter. The uniform doesn't matter.
Right.
I still got to go out here, and if there's something going on in a counter, if I was a police officer, de-escalate that situation before you get a hand. You don't want there to be trouble, because you don't want to have to deal with that. Because once shit gets thick like that, Mr. Bennett, you're out of control. You have no control over that situation.
Right.
And the situation is going to go wherever it goes, and nobody knows the answer to that.
Mm-hmm.
So the best thing to do is to de-escalate the situation as soon as you possibly can.
So I have a
from
question.
my
I have
perspective.
I have a question for the. We got some questions coming from the chat. Now, chat, y'all bring your questions in. We would love to have them. Here's one right here from Checkmate. Thank you, Checkmate, for your comments tonight. He said, "We can't overcome oppression with voting, reform, and protesting." What are your thoughts on that, guys?
Well, I mean, here's the thing: if you voting if you're voting for the right candidate, if the right candidate is running number one, and you vote for that person, and they actually go in there and try to make a difference, then you got a shot. However, if every single politician who's running the race is corrupt or doesn't care about oppression or doesn't care about the issues you care about, you're in a no-win scenario. So,
Right.
and I've said this, I've this in other shows. I think we should start grooming children for politics. Teach them, drill morality into them, and drill all this history into them, so they understand the importance of what they're doing and the responsibility on their hands. We should start grooming as many kids into politics as we can, because that's where the power is, and that's why we have none. No one's voting for us. We had Obama, but I mean, like, honestly, even if he was the most pro-black person on the planet, what could he do? He's the only person there. You know what I'm saying? He's a president, but Congress and the House has to approve of whatever legislation he wants to push. He can't do it on his own.
Well, to that point, I think voting wise, I think we have to start also thinking more local, because like, again, for sheriff, know your sheriff more so than your mayor. Those who can really make differences in your communities. That's where your focus is. The national stage is just not where it's at. I mean, that trickle down is not going to get there. So at least know who your local officials are, and back those things that are going to affect you more so on a daily basis. Your judges, there's a lot of places where you can vote for your judges in these places. So I think out of the things that he had mentioned, again, the protesting and whatnot, that that may or may not have effect, but again, know your local politics. I think that would help greatly in trying to bring about the changes that you want on that level.
And the local politics is not sensationalized. It's not on the media. I think world class. You said you're in Baltimore, so yep. Marilyn Mosby has been on the news a lot, but it's never for anything good, right? She's always on the news, but it's never for anything good, right? So they don't pay attention to their local politicians because it's not on the news unless it's for something bad. If you can go around, I know where I was in D.C., you can ask people, who's the councilman for your ward? They have no clue. They couldn't tell you, and they didn't vote either. And if I tell you, well, your councilman that's running your ward right now, he's getting kicked out of office because he's got an embezzling charge coming. Oh, they don't know anything about that. And I would say to them, and I say this because I've had this conversation with my grandmother. Your local politicians have more of an effect on your life than the president does. And you got to pay attention to that. That's necessary to know. Meanwhile, you're talking about Obama and Trump. Well, they don't really have that much of an effect in your life as opposed to the councilmen who just voted that it was okay to put a new building at the corner of your street. That has more of an effect on your life.
Right.
That's a fact.
And
you got to go run it.
Your school boards. I mean, that's most of your property tax dollars are going towards your school boards. But who's running the school boards in your city?
And also, there are cities and states that pay a lot of taxes. Like in Alabama paid tons of taxes. The sales tax is 10% on the dollar. Okay, then you pay state and federal taxes.
Shit.
So, but then you look at the schools. You're like, where the hell? When you look at these cities in the whole state, you're like, where the hell did the money go? Mm-hmm. So and there's no oversight there. So no one can account for it. It's just like when the war first kicked off. It wasn't. It was a few years. It was a few years because we had just gotten in country into the desert, but that's because we're short-handed. But like $6 billion came up missing. Just nobody knew. Just nobody knew what happened to it. Ronan, do you remember this story?
I remember it, but I was like, how?
Right. And the thing is, and no one knows what happened to it still to this day. That's the action to it. Like they have no clue what happened to this money because there's no oversight.
It's even worse with the treasury. I think they just missed $2 trillion or something like that. Went missing out of nowhere. It was some absurd number.
Right.
That don't even make any sense.
How does that kind of money just disappear and no one knows what happened to it? These politicians get away with it because again, there's no oversight over them. No one pays, like you just said, Trey. No one pays attention to them. No one knows. You can pass by in the grocery store at any given moment, and you would have no idea. Yeah. So no one's paying attention. So whenever they do something corrupt, it goes unseen.
Well, I don't think that local voting is what's gonna fight oppression. I think it's going to come from interdependence, where we are operating the type of nation that we're supposed to where the rest of the world can take us serious, because we don't take ourselves serious. We can pick out any bad stat, but the fact is, um, our reputation around the world is it is not that these people stick together and they got it together. So when other nations know that, and including this country knows that, when they do business with us, it's a certain return that's favorable to them, to the point where even if they don't like us, like the United States don't like Russia or the United States don't like China, you still got to do business with us because we're the best thing swinging. And it's going to come from interdependence and us taking each other very serious. Like we often say on these panels, we don't hear this stuff in real life, and this just YouTube. But the foundation of what's going to move us forward is having these conversations to make sure our households are, producing that type of return for the families. You know what I'm saying? And that's the problem we have. Oh, what's going on with Tommy?
Hey,
That
hey, Black.
man's gone,
Hey,
boy. He gone.
He
hey,
gone,
Black.
man.
That
Hey,
man
Black.
sleep like a mother.
Oh, man.
Oh, he went to
Hey,
sleep that fast? I thought he was just spoke.
He gone.
Oh, shit.
hey, Black man.
Nigga, you went to sleep, nigga?
You good, Tommy?
Hey,
Tommy,
Trey. Oh,
you
Trey
went
got to
night
go,
night?
man. Hey, thank you so
I got
much,
to.
Trey. Thank you
Yeah,
so much, Trey, for being here, man.
if I can just
Appreciate
say
you.
one last thing before I
Appreciate
leave.
it.
Listen,
Absolutely, absolutely.
there is no foolproof, and I hate to say this because it irritates me as a former police officer. Unfortunately, in today's climate, there is no foolproof plan that when you encounter a cop that you're going to come out of that alive. More than likely, you will. More than likely, you will. But what I want for our people who share our reflection, I want you to do whatever you can to stay alive so we can fight your case later. You cannot fight your case on the street. You will not win there. That's not the place to do it. That's number one. Number two, do not be afraid to obtain counsel and sue police departments. The police department that I was on, every policy that got changed and we got trained to do something different was the result of a lawsuit. Every single one of them. Every time we got sued and they had to go pay some family $2 million, $100,000, the next day we were getting roll call. They would be handing us sheets of paper saying, here's a new policy. You can't do this anymore. And I'll tell you one just small example. Earlier, before we got into this technology world, when you got pulled over and you had to show your insurance to a cop, you had to show them a sheet of paper. You always had to have an actual hard copy of your insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Well, as technology grew, people could start having their insurance on their phone. You could just go to an app, boom, show here's I have insurance. Well, officers weren't accepting that. They were writing $500 tickets anyway.
Damn.
There was a lady who sued. Yeah, it's $500 in DC, by the way, if you don't have insurance, just so you know. Um, there was a lady who sued the department and said, I did have insurance. He wrote me the ticket anyway. Guess what happened? She got paid. They came in the next day after that lawsuit with a new policy saying from here on, you can accept insurance cards that are on the phone. The only way to get really the true policy change that a lot of people want throughout police departments is you have to go through that legal course of suing departments because they don't want to deal with that. Now, again, I am not saying that this is all foolproof and this is the 100% plan, but there are some things that seem to have a tendency to work. I appreciate it, y'all.
Trey,
Yeah, I
one more
appreciate it.
thing. If I could ask one more thing,
Yeah.
somebody in the chat, I want to make sure I get their question answered. I believe this too. I think if an officer has a bad situation where he hurts someone or gets sued or has to get locked up for a year, 6, whatever the situation, I think once fired as a police officer, it should be a database where when you go to get another police officer job, you're not able to get one anywhere.
Yeah, so that's an interesting case. I don't necessarily know that there needs to be a database. Here's what I do know. If
Okay.
you apply for a job, another police department, they are supposed to do a background check on you, which would
Right.
include pulling your police file from your last department. So I'm starting to question the department that hired them and if they actually did what they were supposed to do, because had they pulled the file like they were supposed to, they can clearly read that this person was fired. And this person was fired for this reason, and this reason. So I don't know if there necessarily needs to be a database, but if that's what works, then absolutely, then let's have a database. But I also am questioning these departments that maybe are saying they're doing background checks and aren't really doing background checks.
Right,
you
because they
also
may
have
be
Well, hence the
short.
reason for the database. Like again, if they're not going to do what they need to do locally, then you need to escalate it.
Right. That's what I'm saying. If the database is necessary, then the database is necessary, right? But I can tell you when I got hired by DC, I got a call from Maryland State Police at the same time because I had applied to all of them. I had a call from Maryland State Police. I had got DC was the last department I applied to, the first to hire me, which is interesting, right? That's like,
Right.
that seems a little off, right? And then Maryland State Police, maybe their investigation took a little longer. I'm not sure. I also applied to transit. I'm not sure. I don't know if they just were faster, but I also know that DC has had a retention issue and hasn't been able to keep cops. And so maybe certain things they just willing to let slide. I'm not
Right.
completely sure. I'm not completely sure. But if a database is something that's going to help, then absolutely. I'm all for it because that police officer could deal with my mother. And I got issues with that. If you treat my mother disrespectfully, I got problems. We got problems, right?
Right.
And I have a network. I can call cops, right? So it could be my grandmother, it could be my nephew, it could be my niece. You know what I mean? I want officers to start treating people with respect because at the end of the day, you don't have to take someone's life to win that case. You're going to win it. We have more time. I've arrested people that ran away from me and I locked them up a year later. We're going to win. There's no statute. Well, there's a statute of limitation on some things, but for the most part, for most crimes, there's not a statute of limitations that you're going to surpass, right? So you have time. But there's an ego for a lot of officers. There's an ego. There's an ego issue. I got to get him. I can't believe he got away from me. I got to get him. We got to get rid of a lot of that stuff. But if the database helps, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure warrants don't expire. If you got a warrant, you'll just have a warrant until they get
Andrew?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a question for you, Trey. Now, myself and other vets that I know have applied for the police department before, right? And they tell us because of combat experience, and they can't go into your medical records. So they told us, they're like, you can't go in your medical records, but I mean, you might have PTSD, so we don't want to take that chance. So it's like, because when I first got out of the Army, I was just kind of applying for every, you throw your resume out everywhere, right? Security service, and I ended up getting a job with a private security company, doing some more security, armed security in Afghanistan, right? Which was much more dangerous than when I was in the Army. So, but the fact that they said no to some veterans, what I'm saying, who have experienced de-escalating situations and things like that sort. What's the deal with that? Like, why would they not want that person as a candidate?
I honestly couldn't tell you. I've never worked recruiting, and I don't know because it doesn't make sense to me. That seems weird that you would not want to hire officers with experience in the exact field in which you're hiring, which you're recruiting for. I couldn't tell you. And that not hiring due to PTSD is new to me because I'm pretty sure I worked with a guy that had PTSD.
I can only tell you what they told me.
Department. Yeah, I'm
right.
on the department. So I had never. Maybe that was just that jurisdiction. And I do know that they have this. I don't know if you had to do it. I don't know how far in the process you got, but they have this sort of pseudo psych test they give you, where they basically ask you like the same question 50 different ways. You know what I mean? And you have to circle A, B, C, or D. You know what I mean? I don't know how accurate. I don't know how well that works. I have no clue. I honestly I can't answer that question because I just don't know why. I just know that there's no consistency. I know that much. I know that some people get hired and some people don't, and it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. But again, Trey, man, I know you got to go. So, man, I really, really appreciate you for being here, man. And you want to continue watching, man, please do. And I would love to have you back, man. Every Friday we do barbershop talk, so the guys get together on Friday and discuss all different types of matters, man. And we would love to have you, brother. So make sure you subscribe and turn your notification button on, man. And when when we go live, you'll see us.
Yeah, I absolutely did it. I subscribed and turned everything on, man. I appreciate your time, man. I hope everybody be safe and I wish the best for everybody. Have a good one.
You too.
You too, Trey.
Thank you.
And so one of the things, guys, as he's going out, I want to talk to you guys about world class. I know you're gonna be ready for this one. The I'm gonna say rumor, but a lot of people are saying that this was personal, and that this guy, that police officer, had a chick that worked at FedEx with this dude. They worked at FedEx together. He was hitting this girl, and this dude stopped him, got his homeboys together, and beat his ass.
Yeah.
Because that's what I was telling security boss. That's not a coincidence that your ex-girl working at FedEx with this dude, right? And then all of a sudden you get mad and you beat the shit out this dude like you beat his ass on
Oh,
this video.
and they got a baby
but
together too.
what?
What you say it again, Tommy?
The cop had a baby with the chick too. And
Oh, yeah, okay. See, okay.
the thing that really kind of tells you that it was those wasn't regular cops. That was a special unit.
Yeah,
Special unit don't pull you over for reckless driving.
Right.
They
they
generally know
were,
the people they pulling over.
yeah, they were Scorpion. That's street crimes operation to restore peace in our neighborhoods. They were Scorpion. Yeah. So
Yeah, in Baltimore we call them knockers.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's okay. This because everyone said whole George Floyd thing. Like Chauvin and Floyd worked together as bouncers at a club, so they knew each other. You know what I'm saying? No one looked into that. There was nothing about that on the news. No one seemed to look to investigate that. Like this whole thing does look exactly the way you're describing, Black Man. Like, okay, this is a revenge thing.
Yeah, it's personal.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah, it's a personal issue, and he took it too far. This is when you abuse authority. I think these cops should definitely be going to jail. I'm glad they're being charged with something.
But you know what, man? When I told security boss, y'all, security boss said, "What else do you think about the situation? What made him act so? You know, get so animated? Anybody get animated when that nigga come down and say, "Hey, you gonna die tonight, nigga."
Well, and word is he took a picture while he on the ground and sent it to her.
Yeah, beat his ass, took the picture, sent it to the girl. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, what are y'all thoughts on this, man? I mean,
hey man, we see tender dick niggas all the time.
Oh yeah, bro.
That's all it is.
On and offline.
This is normal shit. I mean, they were starting to talk about it being a race issue, or it's because they was black that they got everything done fast. Nigga, I'm from the hood, B. This shit happen every day. The nigga cops are the worst niggas you ever seen in life. They will roll up on you, punch you in your face. I done seen it too many times. Regular school kids who we know ain't them type of dudes getting their bags dropped out, getting their book bags emptied out, pockets. In Baltimore we call it running your pockets.
Yeah.
Cops is robbing them, taking any little weed they got, taking their bike, breaking their shit. I've seen it hundreds of times. This is normal shit, and it's always a nigga super overzealous because y'all I know the one movie where the nigga like, I hate niggas, but it's not really that. It's really just niggas that work for the police. The same type of hood niggas you would see that work for the police, and I can get away with it. And they just do ridiculous stuff. I'm not surprised. It's normal. Like, this stuff is normal.
Yeah.
This stuff is normal.
Say to the world class part, like you get some guys in there bartering ass to get out of tickets and all the crazy shit like that. Like that's just common.
Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Just common.
This is regular stuff, man. So I'm not surprised that there's some type of connection because, like you said, somebody just said it. Those type of guys know who they're looking for.
Yeah.
They don't make those mistakes. They're on a different level of. They're not just doing beat cop, traffic cop shit. They know how to track people. They know how to follow them. They know how to follow up on them. And he used his skills for his own personal shit. Now he gonna be in the jail with the niggas he put in jail. Enjoy.
Yep, and then there's some loyal ass homeboys to come over and help him do it too.
Yeah,
that is
loyal ass.
Yeah, they gotta feel stupid because you didn't just put your life on the line over somebody else coaching.
Yep. And the girl not even with you though. You know what I'm saying? God damn.
But you know what? Like we've seen this on and offline. She ain't got to be with him. It's just his feeling about the whole thing.
His feelings. That's facts. And to those officers,
that's what
if you hear this. To those officers, if you happen to hear this before you go to jail, we're gonna be knocking y'all wives the fuck down, you bitch made niggas.
She gonna be looking like a glazed donut.
Krispy Kreme.
The nigga you killed will be digging in them guts.
Now what's the information, man? Now I will say this too, guys. There was another case. We'll get back to this one, but there was another case. I don't know if anybody heard about it. A white guy was driving around he was in a Silverado pickup truck. Come through the neighborhood, got out. I don't know what this is about. Got out of his car. This was in October the 30th, 2022. Got out of his truck, shot a little black kid. He was probably 11. Shot him in the back several times. Got back in his truck and left. The police go and arrest this dude. The dude tell them, It was self-defense. They released the dude. Ain't no case, no nothing. The dude's still at home, bro. So been at home since they arrested him. He said self-defense. Ain't no charges been brought up against him or nothing.
He shot an 11-year-old
in the back. Y'all Google it. Shot him in the back. Ain't nobody talking about this shit, bro. Nobody, bro.
Tamir Rice was the same way. Like the cops just drove up, got out the car, and just started using off.
Yeah, I shared that shit on something today. I'm gonna find it. Hold on.
Yeah, you remember? You know what I'm talking about? The little kid who was 11 years old. And exactly in Ohio. That was now to me that was one of the most egregious things I've ever seen, and despicable and pathetic thing. Like, and then the cop got it. Like to Mr. Bennett's point when he's talking about getting a job from one county to the next. This guy went one county over, literally, one county over, and got a job as a police officer. After that, and then 11 hours later, shot someone else. 11 hours later, nothing happened to him.
That's why I remember what I wanted to say. I always tell people when these things happen, stop marching against the police. The thing that Trey said is the changes made was because of court cases, right? So I keep telling people the problem is not none of these officials. The problem is bigger than that. The problem is not these police officers. It's the bar association. Yep. It's the bar association. It's the bar association. It's them. They are the problem. They write your cell phone contracts. They write your warranties. They write your bills. It's them. They are the problem. They create an environment where that facilitates a transaction. The transaction for them is called a lawsuit. It's called a claim. And they position things to where you have to need them. They are. So I said all that to say, how does it relate to police? These cops don't know law at all. Next to none of them have a half a clue. And if the ones that do know a little bit of law, they law students at the same time. So I say that to say, who's backing them? It's these attorneys that are backing them, that's giving them the confidence. Being in the hood, you learn a lot about personalities. And the dudes that you know aren't that type of guy that want to be thugs all of a sudden, there's somebody incentivizing them. There's somebody backing him and giving him an insurance that he don't have on his own. And that's what's happening, because that tough shit that they do outside on the street, all them cops is bitches in court. They're not the same guy in court. All that all that stuff, they know how to behave. So you could have behaved when you pulled me over the first time. But they have this backing from these bar associated. It doesn't even matter if it's your attorney. They are the problem. It's them. Y'all march on those motherfuckers. Y'all investigate those people. Stop worrying about all this other shit. They're your judges are bar associated, your presidents, your councilmen, your CEOs, your real estate agents. It's them. They are the problem. I'm telling you. Once you start really studying what they study, like Leader Tony told you, there's no criminal or civil law degree you get. You don't. They all get the same crap. They all get the same degree. They get the same education.
And he also said they don't learn about the law in law school either.
They don't. They learn
how to argue. You learn procedure, and that's it.
Your average, you can get any 20-year attorney. You can put him on a panel with me, and I will dog walk the shit out of him because he doesn't know law. They don't know law at all. They barely even understand jurisdiction. They know the procedure. They don't know law. Couldn't tell you. I was citing the damn elective franchise, Maryland elective franchise 9 is where their oath is in Maryland that they take on the Constitution. The cops don't even fucking know it. They don't know law, so it's the bar association. You're only gonna get movements is from those attorneys are pushing things. So like he said, when they gotta pay $100,000, they gotta pay $1 million, then those guys will come in and say, "Oh, you can't say that no more." You could have fucking did that from the beginning.
Yeah.
Why do I gotta wait to a court case for you to do what you're supposed to do? So it's, again, like I said, it's not the training. It can't be because of the training or the funding, because the bounty hunters are not killing that many people. The private security guards are not killing that many people. The marshal is not killing that many people. The state trooper is not, anything around them. The feds are not killing that many people. Maybe the CIA and black ops and all that other, but city and county cops is shooting people like it's going out of style. And people starting to shoot back. I think they had one of the highest years last year, right? 64 something. Yeah, so Hey man, it's a culture.
Job
And they
security.
got no one to blame but themselves for the officers that's being lost. That whole
But I
system has
mean,
the
look at
system has
that
no one to
though.
blame but themselves.
One of the highest
Yep.
years, and we're only at 64, bro.
Yeah.
And
Yep. And let's get information, man.
Hmm.
Information, man. What are your thoughts on the whole situation? Because I know you probably heated and boiling, brother.
Nah,
Uh,
I put a lot of that out on my show this past weekend, but I think the problem is a lot deeper than just the bar. A part of the thing that protects police is the qualified immunity, which is backed up by the Supreme Court of this country. And until you get rid of qualified immunity, you're going to continue to have these problems. And the reason why is because most of these police officers historically have been emboldened and incentivized to do what they do, because they know that if they do something, they can just say, hey, I thought he was going for a gun. He put his hands near his hip area, all these buzzwords that they use to protect themselves. They're protected by the laws. You can call it board associations, whatever you want to call it. The bottom line is police are protected by the laws that were never intended to protect black people in the first place. Now let's stop playing around here. Black people have never had a positive relationship with policing, and we can take that all the way back to the plantation. We can take that all the way back to doing Reconstruction. We know that many of these police officers during those early days had their careers in bounty hunting and slave patrols. And then once they organized policing, then they joined it as an organized system to occupy black people. I'm 53 years old. From the time I was a kid, police were occupying my neighborhood, not to be friendly, but to harm us in some way or another, either psychologically or physically. One time in this country, if you are a black law enforcement officer, you could only arrest black people because they only allow black law enforcement to police black people. But white people could go into any jurisdiction and do harm to us. Let's understand this police department in Memphis, gentlemen. Let's see, it's about 67% made up of white males, 13% made up of African American or black men. It's about 9% Latino. And to all the people out there who want to blame this behavior on a single mother situation, you got to do research, because the police department is made up of 16% females, 84% males. It's a male-dominated police department. The police chief herself, C.J. Davis, is married. I think Brother Nichols comes from a two-parent family. I think his mother was once married before when she had him. And the brother that you've been seeing on TV with the mother is the stepfather. So he didn't come from a single-parent situation. And then the 5 police officers, whatever we want to call them at this point, we don't know what their status is in terms of whether they come from single parenthood or not. So when people throw those narratives out, they throw out narratives that are very uneducated. Matter of fact, there was a brother who came out on the news who said he actually influenced or trained 1 or 2 of those guys, and he was a black man that was in that police department. So those are the narratives that are going around right now that are really bad narratives, in my opinion. And this is the area that people are failing to look at. For them to do what they did to Brother Nichols, they did what they did because they felt comfortable about it. You don't do what they did unless you've been doing it for a very long time because you've been getting away with it. But this time around, it got caught on video. So they were emboldened to do what they do. And I know people are throwing around these rumors about, well, see, this is a problem with black folks. Why can't we look at things for what they really are? We always got to find a conspiracy or something, when the fact of the matter is the unit is called Scorpion. They have a history of harassing black men, black people in that community, because the neighborhood that Nichols was in is a bad neighborhood, has high crimes, as they say. But there was another video or news report where you had a black man who said that he was harassed by those same individuals and that he warned them that something was going to bad happen. He tried to report them. And guess what? Nothing happened to them when he reported them. This time around, they killed a man. So whether you think it's because, oh, he didn't like his woman talking to him, none of that shit matters. Because people bring their character, their principles, and their values to whatever they do in life. What they showed and displayed is they had no principles, they had no value, and they had no value for black male life, whether they are white cops or black cops, because of the fact that we have in the black community, in some of our black communities, a level of self-hate. And when we hate ourselves and we project hate onto our own people, we don't see them as having any value of any life. So those cops that night didn't see any value in Brother Nichols because they've been doing that prior to Brother Nichols. That's why they felt comfortable on camera saying, stump him. When you had the white boy talking about stump him. Now they're dismissing him from the police force. You had a white boy that night who was filming who had the camera on. They are dismissing him. The emergency workers who do the paramedics, they have been fired. So there is something wrong with that police department. And yes, CJ Davis, she does have to have some culpability and blame because she is supposed to be the leader of that police department. She has some problems because she also was booted out of Atlanta when she worked in Atlanta.
I think she's going to resign.
Yeah, she was booted out of Atlanta over a sex case that she bumbled. Oh, and then originally she came from Durham, North Carolina, where they praised her before she took on this job. So there are problems there. Yes, there are. But this policing has been going on in all these jurisdictions. Baltimore, I got family in Baltimore. Baltimore is bad. San Francisco, LAPD, where I'm here in California, LAPD has its history in good old boys who migrated from the South into the police departments in the West Coast. That's why the LAPD has a really bad history with black folks in California, because a lot of those guys were recruited from those Jim Crow. They have Jim Crow beginnings. So when people get to talking about, oh, slave patrols are not real, come on, man. No, it is real. And so the only way you're going to stop this is that you've got to get rid of the thing that protects them. And you got to do what Brother Johnny Cochran did. He would sue the police departments and make them pay. Remember, these police departments do get, They do have life insurance. They do have insurance policies. There was a police department that went defunct because they kept getting lawsuits over and over again. So you hit them in the pocket. That's the only thing the United States understands. That's the only thing politicians understand. You hit them in the pockets where it hurts. So those two things, you have to hit them in the pockets. You have to change qualified immunity if it's going to change. I don't think it will, because you have conservatives that primarily run the Supreme Court. So you got to do it in so many different areas. It's got to be a multi attention to it. I don't think the marching up and down the street is going to do it anymore. You got to hit them where it really, really, really hurts. And if I'm not mistaken, brothers, this police department, as it's been reported, they have lowered the bar and the standards to recruit police. And I think they were heavily recruiting police in Memphis a few years back because they were calling themselves trying to make their police department more diverse and things of that nature. But it doesn't matter if you want diversity if the people that you're hiring have no character and you don't give them psychological testing and all these different things like that. So and the only reason why we don't hear about FBI and CIA, because what they do is in secret, but they killing people too. Believe that. I got friends that work in those agencies. I know some things. They kill people too. You just don't hear about it.
Yep. And you know what, information, man? I want to share this with you guys because I want to get your perspective on this. I just was telling you guys about this, man, but this needs to be talked about as well because nobody's talking about it. And I didn't know anything about it today until I saw it. So let me show y'all this real quick. There it is. All right, here it is. I'm gonna pull it up, let you guys see this real quick.
It's not getting nearly enough press and attention, and it's making me angry. This was Sensei Reed, a 13-year-old black boy who was shot and killed on October 12th, 2022, by this waste of life, Krieg Butler. I don't know how to say his name. Eyewitnesses say that Sensei was standing outside with his friends, and Krieg walks up to him, shoots, and speeds off. He was then arrested, self-defense, and was released, all dropped. Now, the powers that be are saying they're waiting for a ballistic report and an autopsy to see if his claims of self-defense are proven. And then they're going to present it to like the district attorney or whoever. I, along with Sensei's family, bullshit. Oh, yeah. He was unarmed, by the way. These are the community demands. And if I haven't already said it, all of this happened 3 months ago. Sensei Reed was 13 years old and didn't
I didn't even know about this.
Either.
I'm gonna have to do a podcast on that.
He ain't got no pops.
Huh?
He ain't got no pops.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a sucker. And I'm crashing out. Period. Ain't no need, ain't no need for no investigation.
Right.
Period. That's wild. Like, and it's like what frustrates me is like these motherfuckers seem to pick the right people, dog. I'm not saying this because I'm on YouTube. I'm not, bro. I'm crashing out. There's nothing nobody gonna be able to tell me. My dad ain't gonna be able to call me. My brother, I'm gone. Period. I'm finding out where this nigga stay at, and I'm handling business. Period. This should be so weird, dog. They just seem to pick the right one every time.
Yep. What are your thoughts on Information Man?
I'm horrified by that. I didn't know about it, and I'm glad to know about it now because now I'm going to do research into it and talk about it. More people need to talk about it when you find out these sort of things. But I wanted to say that for the world-class Noble, I have to reassess and say that he is right about the bar, because that's all a part of the same system that all these politicians operate off. He is right about that. And you've got to hit them in that area where it hurts. Other than that, nothing is going to change. And I'm afraid, look, how many of you have heard the statement year in and year out, the officers need more training? They were saying that in the 70s, the 80s, when I was a kid. I've heard that over and over again. It's not about the training because it's the character of the people that they're bringing in, right? And look, even if that rumor is true, that this was something personal over a woman, these are weak men, because why are we taking the lives and putting our careers at risk over coochie?
Yep.
Well, you know,
if the woman don't want to be with you, then that shows you something that right there. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that was part of my thing with him, and I'm glad that his answer was what his answer was, because we're constantly getting pushed at. Where there's more good cops than bad, there's more good cops than bad. Mm-hmm. We all know if a good cop reports a bad cop, they literally put their life on the line.
Right.
How could that be if there's overwhelmingly more good cops than bad? It wouldn't be able to exist like that. So
right.
The fact that people keep saying that shit, it frustrates me, because I'm like, that's it. Like, I heard a dude call into a New York radio station after, I think it was the one that got killed over the cigarettes.
Eric
yeah, and I remember when that happened, and he called in, and he pretty much said it was wrong, and he said, I can't say my name because my life would be in danger.
Yeah.
How could you tell me that there's more good cops than bad when this man can't even sit here on the phone and say his name and say his opinion about it, or his life? There's no way you can convince me it's more good than bad if that's the environment they live in. It makes no sense to me. But they will constantly push at you. There's more good than bad. Like I just don't get it.
Do you remember Sister Horn from Buffalo, New York?
Sounds familiar.
Caroline Horn in Buffalo, New York, was a veteran police officer. She had over 20 years in or whatever. She was getting close to retirement. One of her fellow police officers that she worked with damn near killed a black man. She witnessed what he was doing, and she stopped him in midway of doing what he was doing. That brother is still alive today, and he says, I'm alive because of that woman. She went back to the police department or the force. She reported him as being excessive force and being out of control. Guess what she got for doing the right thing as a good cop? She got fired. She got discredited for years, and she lost all them years of pension. Check this out. She's been fighting this for a number of years. She finally got her pension and got recognized maybe a year ago. After struggling to get what was hers all these years, they threw her under the bus and tried to make a liar of her. And this is what a good cop did. So this question is, when good cops do speak out, there's enough evidence out there to show you that they get thrown under the bus.
Yeah.
And I actually get sick of hearing that word too, brother, because I always say to myself, well, where are the good cops to stop the bad cops? If there's so many guys, why is it that the good cops all of a sudden disappear? They vanish all of a sudden. Then they come out after the shit happens, say, we good cops.
Absolutely.
Now, information man. What was the guy's name? I think it was California. Maybe y'all can remind me of his name. It was real popular. The man that snitched on the police. He was a police officer. Snitched on his partner for abusing a guy. And then they fired him, and he went and killed all their family members.
Right. You can go to the what's the guy Sipico in New York? What was that case? The cop that worked in New York.
Yeah.
And he exposed the corruption in the New York Police Department, and I think it was they made a movie out of it. I think Al Pacino played the role, and he got I think he might have passed away now, but he got railroaded, and he spoke. So
but this dude died though, right? Y'all know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, I know. They just sit there.
They hunted him
down in California, and they shot the shit out of him.
They shot all the police out. They shot the shit out of him
and burnt the house.
Yeah,
but and even like Oakland, our police department just got from under federal what do they call it? Federal oversight. Last year.
Oakland police or something.
And remember when they had the rioters?
Right, remember? Yeah. I lived in Oakland, so I know it very well.
Yeah, so I'm like, if it's more good than bad, then how come when they snitched on the rioters couldn't stay on the police force? Nobody can answer it.
Right.
And it's way more than the rioters, because they had the case with the girl that they it's so much BS, and all you get from these people is, but there's more good than bad. We just focus on the bad. Like,
I wholeheartedly agree. It's called the code of compliance. It's a matter of safety for yourself. While you said, like, I don't agree with what's going on, but for my life, I will have to comply with this shit by saying, hey, say the PC thing rather than stand on it. Because you said those examples, and those were light. What about the ones that sit there and they basically made them people disappear?
Yep, exactly, bro. Well, man, listen, guys, I want to thank you guys for being here, man. Tonight, information, man. Thank you for coming in the rear, man, and closing the coffin now so we could drop it a little bit lower. Bro, I appreciate all the things that you do, man. I really do. World class. Same for you, Tommy B. Know you, my brother, and I love you, man. Drell, Ronan, I thank each and every one of you guys for coming on tonight, man. We gotta figure this thing out, man. And information, man. If you having a show, man, I would love to. I'm gonna be watching and supporting you. But,
I will cover the story once I can get some more information on it. Because
I'm gonna send you another one too. Roland Martin had on his show where the little boy was in he left home to go play, and then this white couple picked him up. The people saw them pick him up, right? The kid was 13.
Mm-hmm.
They picked him up, and then all of a sudden, he come up missing. They found him 2 days later, face down in a sugarcane field in Louisiana.
It's a damn shame.
And Roland Martin showed the pictures of this little boy. My God, bro. It was bad, bro. The women on the panel on Roland Martin's show just turned their cameras off. They couldn't even stomach it, bro. So they found him face down, and guess what? That couple, they didn't arrest him. They didn't arrest neither one of them, bro.
Right. Well, I'll leave you with this, brother. I think this is the reason why when people wonder why black people, black men, black women in particular, why we sometimes have the chip on our shoulders or the attitude that we have about the world that we live in, is because these are the realities that we live with. Our children's safety, our safety, all of us on this panel, and people often say, oh, you're using it as a crutch. It's not a crutch, but all of us on this panel could be susceptible to being harmed when we go outside our door, get in our cars and go about our regular day. All it would take is some foolish police officer or some foolish person that could potentially do harm to us. And that's the world that we live in, even though we get up every day and we work and we do our thing. But that is still something that we, more than anyone, have to realize is a reality. That's the effed up part about it. And that's why black men sometimes had an attitude that we have, right?
Right.
Whether good or wrong, it's just a reality.
Yep. Well, again, man, thank
you, man. Y'all great up here.
I appreciate you guys, man. I'll see you guys tomorrow, man. We're doing Talk Tuesday on tomorrow, man. Y'all have a good night.
Appreciate you.
Appreciate it.